Welcome to this week's vlog. Now, if you've been following my vlogs for a while, you might recall that often I refer to a book that I've been reading or I'm reading. And the book that I'm currently engaged in and enthralled by is this one. It's called In Spite of Dungeons by S.J. Davies. He was an army chaplain, and he's writing here of his experiences during the Korean War and the war that resulted in the division of Korea between North and South. He became a prisoner of war, and he was captured by the Chinese. And this book writes of his experiences in the early 50s as he was a prisoner of war, and really tremendous suffering. In fact, he was the only chaplain who survived captivity. All the others died, as did many other prisoners of war. The conditions were terrible, especially during the harsh winters when temperatures dropped dramatically well below freezing, and the conditions, and they had little food at times, and they were treated quite badly at times, sometimes solitary confinement. Anyway, this is a remarkable book, and I want to read you one paragraph from the book. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm enjoying reading it. Incidentally, the book has been signed by him, and I just find when I find a signed book that to know that the person who wrote it is actually held it and signed it. There's something special about that. We lived squalidly, unwashed for long periods, unshaven, foul-smelling, our bodies a breeding ground for lice. I told my comrades that I looked forward to the day when I should stand in the pulpit of a fashionable West End church and say, "My dear brethren, have you ever been lousy?" Every morning we spent a ritual 2 hours turning our clothes inside out and killing about 50 lice each. I had a pocket New Testament from which I often read to my comrades. I said prayers in which the group gladly joined. In 2 cases, I laid hands on the chronically sick and blessed them. And then he says, we felt strongly that we were in the hand of God. Isn't that remarkable? Here were men going through terrible suffering, and yet they felt somehow God was with them. They were in God's hands. And I find so often it's greatly inspiring to read people who've been through a time of suffering and yet speak of the faithfulness, the love, the presence of God. Let me give you another example. Sally McClung is a lady I follow on Facebook. She is quite a remarkable lady, currently living in South Africa. She and her friend Floyd were engaged in mission work in different places around the world. But the last few years have been really tough. Floyd was ill for a long time and he died. Sally has got cancer. She struggles with that. But she writes regular updates on her Facebook page, and always inspiring, encouraging, despite everything she's experiencing. And a recent Facebook posting quotes from a book called Ransom by Danielle Steele. And in the story, a woman is going through a really nightmare experience, and a young priest comes to counsel her, and this is what's in the book. The priest says to this woman going through this terrible experience, we're all given terrible trials sometimes, things that we think will break our spirit and kill us, and they make us stronger in the end. They seem like the cruelest blows, but in a funny way, they're like compliments from God. I know that must sound crazy to you, but that's what they are. If he didn't love you and believe in you, he wouldn't give you the challenges like this. They're opportunities for grace. You'll be stronger from this, I know it. This is God's way of telling you that he loves you and believes in you. It's a compliment from him to you. So that's the quote from the book. And then Sally writes, most likely you, like me, and like the woman in the book, would say, no, thank you. I really don't need or want a compliment like that. And yet there's so much truth there, writes Sally. In essence, the young priest is saying that God trusts us when we go through those hard times and experiences. I couldn't have made it, writes Sally, through the last 8.5 years, which has been really hard for her, without God's goodness, faithfulness, and grace. I haven't always liked what I've gone through, but I've seen God at work in amazing ways in the midst of the difficulty. There have been many opportunities for grace, and His grace has been sufficient. Again, a wonderful testimony from someone who is still going through tough times, really tough. And she writes openly about the struggles she faces, but always that trust in God. And then just one more example. A lady called Louise Morse. As far as I know, no relation to Inspector Morse, who we loved on the telly. Anyway, she is part of Pilgrim's Friends Society, which is a great organisation that especially cares for people with dementia. And she, in her latest email, writes this: I'm encouraged by an email from a pastor friend in Ukraine, whose church has become a refugee centre. Now, of course, people in Ukraine, terrible suffering following the invasion. Lots of people lost their lives. And Ukraine's got a lot of Christian believers. But anyway, this is what the pastor writes. The physical consequences of this war are terrible for Ukraine, but it also has created new opportunities for the gospel. And we are not waiting for the war to end to take advantage of those opportunities. And most importantly, to remain obedient to God's calling. So again, people in terrible circumstances, yet faithful to God, still pressing on, still witnessing, still caring, still loving. And I just thought I'd share these 3 examples with you. And I don't know, maybe you're going through a really tough time right now. Maybe it's hard and you don't understand why God has allowed it. Well, my prayer for you and for all of us is that, especially in the tough times, we really would know that God is with us in those tough times, that God is using them to shape us and mold us, but most of all, He's with us. God is with us always. He never lets us go. So just some thoughts for the day. Hope they will encourage you as they've encouraged me. So God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.